Welcome to Everything Rodeo, where we separate champions from the rest of the crowd.
We'll take you down the trail of someone's life, a long haul tour rodeo, and our everyday adventures.
So brace yourself.
Because it's fixing to be a wild ride.
We're your hosts,
Mace Renfrey
and Cody Stanley.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Everything Rodeo podcast. We are once again in the crawl space. We have a very special guest with us.
Guy that wears many hats. Mr. Jeff Lee, Siloam Springs, Arkansas.
Not too far from home.
Welcome, Jeff.
Yay!
Wow. Okay.
Noise I'm familiar with.
We have had a eventful evening. This is actually the first episode that we have included air conditioning, as you will see through Jeff's camera there.
Yeah.
First guest that has actually felt... I'm a fan. Yes, he is.
I got dad jokes.
That's good jokes. I feel like if you weren't an announcer, you could be a dang good clown.
Past life, it was there. I was a terrible clown, though.
Oh, well.
Thanks for bringing up hard memories.
Oh,
yeah. I learned something through Dusty in the last podcast. I didn't realize you fought bulls too.
I did. So, growing up, I'm the second generation in my family cowboy. So mom, dad were the first. Dad came from kind of a farming background. My grandma and grandpa, they farmed. They showed horses. Dad was like, got a love for rodeo. Middle of Indiana, not rodeo country.
Yeah.
Kind of fell in love with rodeo, and he started rodeoing. Mom, she came from an equestrian English side, met dad, and then started rodeoing. And so grew up with it all my life. That's all I knew, so I'm second generation, not too deep, not too much cultural roots.
Yeah.
But, to do that. And as I kind of grew up, did other things. I was a Kentucky junior rodeo shoot dogging champion when I was a kid.
Right on.
Tried riding bulls, but, you trying to be my size, you don't know what it's like. I'm about this tall when I was 4th and 5th grade.
Oh, really?
Getting on roping steers.
And how tall are you? Because you
6'2".
Okay,
Yeah,
so 6'2".
6'2".
Yeah.
And so I grew tall really quick, and was never really good at bull riding, right? But I had a love for that end of the arena. My dad was a rough stock guy. Didn't know much about timed events, short of shoot dogging. That's not really doing it. And so kind of had that love. Wanted to do it more when I was in high school, but dad really kind of, hey, let's kind of shied me away because he's metal from the knees down, both legs.
Right.
I remember as a kid being in the emergency room watching my dad them work on a collapsed lung. So that kind of puts an impression on you.
Sheesh.
And had a unique opportunity when we were little. We went up to, when I was little, upstate New York. There's a theme park up there called Frontier Town, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of, outcast kids of rodeo, but got to be around, it was a theme park, but it was a real working town and had skits throughout the day, but they put on 3 little shodeos every day. They bucked some horses, they bucked some bulls, but they had a lot of showmen, a lot of contract acts, trick riders, dog and pony shows. Joan Ronaldo was one of those that had a trained Bramer bull. Harvey Earl was a trick roper, really big name in Canada and Canadian roping, but he came down and performed there, not too far from Canada border. And so I got that opportunity as a kid to just watch and be behind the scenes with all these people, rob stagecoaches and be a part of the acts. And so again, that was a unique 2 summers for me. And everybody thinks New York, you think just city, right? Mm-hmm. Adirondack Mountains, those are mountains.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I remember it was May when we get up there and it's snowing, in Memorial Day.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so just to get that experience in there, and so kind of jump back into wanting to be more in the arena. Dad said, hey, you kind of push you to being a clown. And I kind of did that in junior high and do the little FFA rodeos and kind of do that. But I wanted to be a part of the show. I didn't want to be the clown. I wanted to be a bullfighter. And so fought some little shodeos around there, fought some Clyde Kirk, gave me my first shot. Opelo, Arkansas, a little bitty barn, cold Saturday nights in the Opelo barn, fighting bulls. I got some experience, but no real, stuff to do.
Yeah.
Went to a Lyle Sankey school in Corey Wall. Remember Dad, I was 14. Corey Wall was the instructor. We are going to go to Magnolia, Arkansas in December. Bitterly cold. Going to be about, 6 or 7 guys signed up for the bullfighting school, full group of bull riders. Get down there, and it's just me and Corey Wall. I'm a 14-year-old kid, but I've got one of the best bullfighter ever, Corey Wall, and one of the best bullfighting instructors, Corey Wall. And so you talk about going 0 to 90 real quick, because they had bulls of every level. And so kind of get there. And so always had a love of freestyle bullfighting. One of my favorite bullfighters that I think doesn't get enough recognition, Joe Bumgarner, though. Joe never did a lot of freestyle. He wasn't a freestyle guy, but an incredible protection guy throughout. You think how many times Joe Bumgarner fought some of the biggest events in the world, NFR, how many times, PBR World Finals, and did it so quietly as a tall guy. Because I looked up to, because he was a pretty tall guy to do all that, and so I really looked up to that. So when I'm out there, I got a buddy that's freestyling and fighting bulls, and so hey, I know a place we can go in Valiant, Arkansas. And Chalk Donaldson, kind of knew Chalk, kind of heard the 44 Bar Rodeo Company. That was big stuff, for a kid to go in the practice pen that thinks he's hot stuff. Really think you're hot stuff. And then what I didn't know is I got introduced to Charlie John Coffey. And if anybody has raised some of the most prominent bucking bull lineage in the world, Charlie John Coffey did. Always had an EF brand on the side of these bulls. A lot of people never realize it until you go back and watch old PBRs. You see how many bulls had EF. They started out as a calf, a little bitty brand. As they grew, that brand got big. But there's an EF brand on the side. That came from Charlie John. Scat Cat came from Charlie John. Some of the meanest fighting bulls came from Charlie John. Duya, Rex Dunn owned that bull. Well, Charlie John wanted him as a bucking bull first, and he fought. He didn't want to buck. So that was what I stepped into unwittingly. And went down there and really thought I knew how to freestyle and fight, and literally got my butt handed to me, but I was young and I had enough gumption or stupidity. I was mad. This Bramer got me down. Young calf, but he got me and wasn't really hurting me, but just mauling the heck out of me.
Yeah.
And all these guys were sitting on the fence and they were laughing. And I remember looking up and going, is anybody going to help me? And they all kind of laughed at me again, and they got down and
set you up.
Got it up. And after that, Chalk said, hey, come back. Come back down here. And I kept coming. I mean, it was 3 hours from home, and Mom would drive. Wasn't old enough to drive. Mom would drive me down there on Tuesdays or Thursday nights, whenever it was. And this was a day when, man, I'm thinking mid-'90s, late 90s. You'd have 40 guys show up for practice pen. And you didn't get on the good bulls, the practice bulls, until you broke in the young bulls. And so I got a huge rodeo bullfighting education in that arena every Tuesday night or whenever it was in Valiant, Oklahoma. And eventually, I think one of Chalk's guys got in some trouble with the law, the bullfighter, and I was 15 at the time, and Chalk said, hey, kid, you're my bullfighter this year. Okay, all right, cool. And he only carried one bullfighter. And this is at the time Chalk is Duya, Juice, Killer Bee, some of the biggest named bulls in the PBR. Right. He's hauling them. And then he's also bucking them at these local rodeos. They're just slamming these guys' heads.
Just getting used to them.
Here I'm a 15-year-old kid fighting these bulls,
right,
and by myself. And then you get to fight a Mexican bull at the end of the night. And so that was I learned a lot of great things from Chalk. Chalk, he didn't run his rodeo in the sense of, he ran his rodeo, but he was never in the arena while the rodeo was going on. He was always sitting there talking to the committee. He was handling business. He was a businessman. And he had such a good crew of guys that are still in the business today that took care of the rodeo part. And so Chalk knew that the rodeo will handle itself. I'm going to do business outside the rodeo arena. And so just seeing a lot of that and getting to experience Chalk, that was something special for me as a kid.
Right.
And so I guess transition from there, Chalk had sold the company. And so I kind of like, well, what do I do now? I think, you're 16, 17, my world's over, right? So the next natural thing to do is, I'm going to be a clown. I want to be a funny man. And so I did. We had a trained Bramer bull, called him A1. That was kind of our joke. If he didn't do good, that's what he was going to get covered in. A1. And so used A1. A1 helped me live through college. So I kind of rodeo clown, you rest through high school, through college. Man, I'd rodeo, make good money all summer. Didn't really have to have a job when everybody else did during college. And got to do a lot of cool things. But I grew tired of being a rodeo clown because I didn't work the best events. Usually don't get to work with the best announcer. I wanted rodeo to be something different. And so kind of stepping away from that, I got into production before I ever got into announcing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it grew from there. So,
Dang. So at what age do you feel like you kind of, obviously after college, but
Yeah.
when you started really getting more involved with the production side?
so it honestly started in college, throwing some parties, college parties, the production side of that. But it was a business class. It was like, hey, sit down, come up with a business. And it was, I'm going to start Tough Bull Productions, Tough Bull Tour, or whatever. And I had that idea as a freshman or junior in college, but never had the ability to step out and produce anything yet. But I already had that kind of that idea in my head, and I grew up in an era of me and Dusty Myers, you had on here. We grew up in the South, and in the South, it was Harper Morgan. You had a lot of great rodeo companies, Harry Vold, Cotton Roster, but we didn't get to see those productions. We grew up watching Harper Morgan, and Harper Morgan was a show.
Right.
It wasn't just a rodeo, it was a production. And so as a kid, you go to Little Rock and watch that, or go Springdale and watch those shows. Those were productions. It may not, you don't ever remember who was writing or what was, but I remember the openings. I remember the Dark House. I remember Phil Gardenhire. I remember Liesel. Those made the show for me. And so creating that magic, that was something special. And then you go to, Dardanelle, Arkansas to work that rodeo on, kind of grew I guess a deep-seated, not hatred, but it's like, we can do better.
Yeah.
We're going to do better.
For sure.
And as I got into producing, I did stuff really bad. I mean, I made the same stinking mistakes. I was worried about the wrong things, and probably one of the best lines I ever heard in the story was Tommy Rand talked about him selling a bull to James Harper, and he was all excited, and he took this bull to Jonesboro, and Jonesboro, big rodeo at the time, super big rodeo inside the Convocation Center. And show got done, and Tommy was the one that told me the story. Tommy goes up to him and says, "Man, James, how do I get to where you're at?" And James looked at him and said, "Son, you ain't. You too worried about rodeo, and I'm putting on a show." That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. That's pretty good stuff there, because we get caught up, I think, a lot in what we think competition should be, and we forget about the audience doesn't see the things that we see.
Right.
They're there for an experience.
Yeah.
That may be the only rodeo they go to that year. Mm-hmm. They're not even maybe a casual fan. It's people get upset when you say they compare us to a circus, and they get upset by that. But I don't, because that's a family tradition.
You only go when they're in town.
Correct. Exactly.
You're not going to go like search out the circus. You only go when they're in town.
In rodeo, we occupy a very unique space, because let's think about, most people in the world will never get to experience an animal or horse in their backyard. They don't get to experience rodeo growing up.
Right.
But they know how to throw a football. They know how to bounce a basketball. They know what it's like to kick a soccer ball, because they can do that in their backyard.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's easy for them. And there's local activities they can all join that. They may not have the appreciation of what it is to be 85, 89 on a bareback horse. What's the difference between that? They don't know,
Yeah.
but they're there having fun. And they don't care that Joe Blow from down the road is entered, but they hear him, they know that town, they're going to cheer for him.
Right.
Or Trevor Brazil's back in the box, and they don't care. They're there for the entertainment part.
Exactly.
So I think it took me a long time, probably longer than it should, to figure out, what makes a magical show. Mm-hmm. And you try to create a good opening.
Yeah.
I think of rodeo as like a play. You have an opening, you have a middle, and then how do you send them off? And so to be able to do that and set your rodeo up in a way, or set your event up in a way for the potential of setting magic, there's a science and then there's the art. And
Right.
so I learned that from probably George Marshall, but I didn't get to spend a lot of time. I want to correct myself. Wasn't ever really close to George, but got to watch a lot of George's events, and then got to be involved with them through Scott Burris. Mm-hmm. And then Scott Burris would bring bulls to my events, and I'd learned a lot of things secondhand through Scott Burris on, hey, this is how you set up the pin. Mm-hmm. This is how all right, this guy made it the short round. This is how you set up the show to where you have the best potential for that magic.
Right.
You can't always make it happen, but you can set it up for the potential of it.
Yeah.
And, one thing I did pick up from George just talking about is like, our events are like boxing matches. And if you've got Mike Tyson matched up with the featherweight, That's no fun on either side. If we're riding all the bulls, well, the bulls, they're junk.
Right.
If we're bucking off all the cowboys, these cowboys no good. So you find a right magical spot to try to match up your
You
contestants.
got to have them highs with all the lows.
Yeah, exactly. So, man, I feel like I'm all over the place now. But that kind of grew into my love of production, doing things really bad off at the start. And I remember trying to get in pyro, not knowing a thing about pyro, panicked, lit the fire line. It didn't light up, so I went out there with the can, tried to light it up again. It really took off that time. Gets into the can. It's literally like something off of Ricky Bot, the Talladega Nights. I'm kicking the can across the arena. I run out. Somehow there's a bucket of water. Don't throw it. Somebody's like, don't throw it. I throw it on, and fire goes everywhere.
Oh.
And so, and just really disgusted with myself. I am no better than the things that I saw. And so I really went on kind of a personal journey of studying what makes a good show.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many shows I went and watched, and not even watching a show. I have a notebook, writing things down. And thank God for my wife that's been with me since college. We got married shortly after we both, I graduated, but be there right by my side.
Yeah.
And from the time before we got married, I sat her down and said, "This is what this is what I'm going to do. If you see yourself wanting to do this, then," it wasn't like, I guess we weren't the most romantic about it. Like, "Hey, do you want to get married?" "Yeah, okay, all right, let's go get your ring. I'll let you pick out the ring. I'm not going to go buy one. Let's go pick out the ring." And then we sat down and had a real kind of business discussion. Like, this is what I want to do. So,
Do you want to do this?
do you want to do this
doing this
with me?
together or
And
what?
she said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And it's been the rock. The balancing. I call her my anchor and my sail.
Yeah.
She's the one that keeps me too high and too low. Keeps you from rough water. She'll keep you steady, and is just enough gentle breeze to keep you going.
That's
So,
awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and your wife, she does music with you at a lot of these rodeos, so
Yep.
you're now announcing and stuff. But I kind of want to go back. So
Yeah, absolutely.
talked about it a lot, and there's so much stuff I always think about. I want to ask, but then I always kind of forget. But one thing that definitely caught my attention is, like, as a videographer or a creative, like I'll see somebody's stuff and I'm like, it's so easy to want to reproduce, like, all these clowns that they're like, hey, I could do that same act. But if someone goes to a rodeo in Cheyenne, wants to see the daddy of them all, sees that act, and then you copy it, somewhere else, it's like not the greatest experience as a fan. So, for me, like, I'll watch a movie and I'll see something and no one else will probably recognize it or see it. But to me, I'm like, holy crap, how did they do that? And then in my mind, I'm like, how can I do that with something I'm creating or something? So I'm sure, as you went through those steps of, like, watching different shows and how can I make this better? We all have to,
How do I put my spin on it?
right. And when you're starting, you look at all these guys that are amazing and you're like, how the heck do I get there? And obviously you have to go one foot in front of the other, but at the same time, it's always hard for me because I'm like, I feel like I have the potential to do that right now, but I don't have the experience to do that right now. So it's like, I don't know. There's so many cool things about that. I've been to rodeos that are absolutely horribly produced, and the announcer and the clown, like, don't mesh. And then I've been to rodeos that you don't even have to try. Like you and Dusty,
Magic.
like you guys, it's magic, like you said. And I think putting on a show like that, it's like what you said. It's a show. It's not a rodeo. And so many people kind of get wrapped up in, like, there's hardcore guys that follow rodeo, or there's the people that hardly ever go to rodeo. And we kind of talked about it, but it's like, there's so much. There's like this persona of a cowboy, and if you don't fit in with it, some people feel like they can't even be a part of it. And so it's like, how do we create a good fine line with that? But it's like, someone was talking about the first time rap music was played at a rodeo, and it's like, you have to alter different things to accommodate the people that are coming to your
audience.
shows.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that, you master what it is that you have your mind, like, you see something you want to make and you can do it and be even greater.
Yep.
And it's pretty cool. Like, we filmed a lot of your productions, and you have an awesome one coming up that no one's ever done anything coming in September, which we'll get to kind of in a little bit. But I think it's pretty cool, me not growing up in the industry, and then also, get, like, when I went to Springdale as a kid, when I was younger, you were still announcing, Rodeo of the Ozarks, and then the PBR and stuff that come to town. So it's been pretty cool to like having not known you but recognized you, and then now like being involved and seeing how it works, and then meeting different clowns and bullfighters and hearing the stories of how everybody comes together. And it's just cool to. Everybody has the same story. They look up to somebody or they know what they want, and then it's like, yeah, sometimes you have to kind of alter the way that you do things. You might have to kind of copy to learn how to do it, but eventually your goal is to get here.
Yeah, so. And find you in the process. And so what I think is so cool is like to see you guys. I knew you guys before this.
Right.
I knew Cody for a while, hanging out at Asylum Rodeos, roping, doing that stuff. See this fuzzy-headed kid coming around. Like, who is this guy? Like, you've been around for like a couple years, and you just show up like a magician and then disappear like David Copperfield. I'm like, who was that guy that was filming? Yeah. Oh, we don't know.
Yeah.
And then to finally kind of get to know you, and then like, oh yeah, I remember you being around, and then see what you were creating when nobody knew or nobody was watching.
Right.
You know, the idea that you had, the passion you had of capturing rodeo in a cinematic view.
Exactly.
And then you guys talking about, hey, we're going to do this thing called Everything Rodeo and podcast. I'm like, yeah, do it. And so that's the biggest thing you can do is do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Don't let perfection stop progress.
Yes.
And that's the biggest lesson I had to learn was I used to be a perfectionist, and that can cause detrimental harm to yourself and your production when something doesn't go right. And so just realizing that it's a process, and this one may not be as good as the next one, but I'm going to learn.
Strive for perfection, but if it comes in short, don't kick yourself over it.
Correct.
Yeah. Because the next one, if you keep striving for that, eventually it's going to get there.
Exactly. And so that was one of the things that was hard on me, like announcing, because I have a production background, is to learn that, okay, you have to know when you can be a production-minded person and when you're not going to achieve the goal. And that's created around the team that you have at that rodeo. And you can get really frustrated because, old Jim Bob working the outgate didn't do this at the right time, and then you can make some hard enemies just because you think it needs to be this way. And so the biggest lesson that maybe I ever learned was my job is to announce, and I have a style, and I'm going to announce that. But my job is also to create the goal of that committee. Some committees have an idea. They don't know how they want it.
Yeah.
But you take their idea and you make it yours.
Right.
And that's the magic that you create as an announcer. And then some places are like, hey, we want you to come up with it. Okay, cool. That's great. Let's roll. And just know what elements you've got to work with, and can I achieve what I want with what I have.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, well, you've done an incredible job. Like I said, we've been to a couple of you do a PBR, or not P. Well, you do the Challenger Series. You used to. Now you're announcing it, but you do your own bull riding nationals. Yes, so you have one in Springfield. You have one in Siloam.
Yep.
You've done a couple other ones, different areas and stuff. Yep. So whenever you produce events, what is your main goal? Is it for the fan experience?
Money, hopefully. No.
Obviously, you want to make some money. But.
Well, to create the memory that I had watching a Harper Morgan show as a kid.
That's awesome.
Somebody, our job, when you know something's good, is when that kid is entertained. Because if that kid's entertained, the chances are mom and dad are happy.
Yeah.
And to create something magical, to create an experience that they wouldn't necessarily expect out of your show, to give them something different. Look, it's really hard to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
The rodeo's been around, bull riding's have been around, PBRs, all these things, flash glamour, but to give them something that they'll remember, something worth their time and their money that they spent why come and watch me when I can sit at home and watch Netflix literally on my phone?
Right.
We're in such competition nowadays for people's time and their money that it's so spread out. What garners their attention to come to you?
Right.
And so when you've got a house full of people, you better produce something. Because I always tell guys, look, even in my production meetings, guys, I tell you, we are not here for this year. We're producing the show for the ticket buyer next year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want these people to say, dang, that was good. The next time this comes to town, we're not missing
have tickets before.
We're not missing this. And so I've done that time and time again. One of the coolest venues I ever got to produce with me and LJ was LJ Jenkins' finals.
Joplin.
And we did in Joplin. And this little bitty building, downtown Joplin, Memorial Hall, probably only sat 1,800 people, but it had enough floor space for a 75, 80 by 80 arena, perfect for bull riding. And it felt like you were in the Thomas and Mack Arena in this building because everybody's on, they're stacked, it's two-tiered and they're stacked on top of you watching over the show. Not a bad seat in the house, but when you get that many people in there and you create an atmosphere, and we got that thing to where we had no tickets to sell at the door. If you didn't buy tickets before the show, you weren't getting in, you didn't get to see the show. And so that was a pretty special, and then COVID obviously, stopped that event. And then the city made some changes and did some other stuff and pretty much condemned that building, which is a shame because that's such a historical building and a neat venue.
Tore it down.
Yeah, it was a magical venue, so, but just creating special moments at your events and an energy with a team of people that gives a show momentum, because if you've been somewhere, you can feel that energy.
Right.
You feel the energy of a
the
place.
atmosphere is completely,
Yeah.
especially if you, like you said, created the year before. I mean,
Yeah.
like the finals in Vegas, even if there's not a rodeo and you're like outside of Thomas and Mack,
There's
it's
an
just,
energy.
Yeah, you can feel it.
One of the coolest things to ever do, if you never have rode the free bus, that was one of the coolest experiences that whenever I first went out there 10, 12 years ago, probably longer than that, but the first time I rode the free bus because I'm broke, from the hotel to the arena, and all these people are so excited.
You can feel it in there.
You can just feel the chatter. You can feel the energy. They pull up to Thomas and Mack. They're cheering before they ever get off the bus. And then outside Thomas and Mack, there's all this atmosphere already built in. The stages, the promotional displays, all that energy leading up to walking through that door and seeing that arena for the very first time and going, this isn't big as I thought it was. So when you get inside that building, you realize how tight and how compact, and then you watch that rodeo and it's over so quick, you go, what just happened?
Yeah.
They leave you wanting more.
Right.
And that magical, and I guess that's the other thing, is sticking to a time slot. Be on time, start on time, stop on time.
Yep.
And like a movie, you can sit there so long and then you're going to get bored.
Right.
And you're going to have to keep that action going. You have to kind of keep that atmosphere going, and you have to know when to stop to make sure that they want more. So that's I guess that's the joy I get out of it, is when all the stars align and you can make those things happen. Man, it's a great feeling. It's a cool feeling. So I think for me, the hardest thing is like on the promoting side of it is, my biggest thing is I want every seat sold, and then I could have 99.9% of them sold, but how do I fill those 2 seats?
Yep.
What'd I do wrong? I've had sold out shows. I've done a lot of things at a very young age. I took a lot of stupid risks, but dumb ignorance, blind ignorance and faith led me to some pretty neat experiences. Excuse me. Rosita's is coming back up. I don't think I have Alpha-Gal. But to create that magic, having the right performers for the right audience. There's people that you talk about don't mesh well. Coming from a clown background, I get to work with so many good people. I can't begin to tell you. Ronald Burton, John Harrison, Pork Chop, Dustin Jenkins is fun. A young guy that's kind of on the up and coming, Colton Omer. He's kind of cool and fun.
Nice stash too.
Yeah, he does have a pretty sweet stash. I mean, he'd give you a run for your money.
Yeah, he would.
But me and Dusty kind of grew up in the same. We didn't grow up together, but we were kind of in the same era of when we were fighting bulls. We'd run into each other at Oklahoma City, and then when I got into the production side, I'm like, he's my guy. And Dusty's quick to tell you, I'm a rodeo clown. I'm not a PBR entertainer.
Right.
I love rodeo. I love that side. But the guy is he's very versatile in what he can do in entertainment wise.
Absolutely.
He can take that kind of crowd and still be mesh those styles, and does a really good job with it. And so
yeah,
we had the fortunate ability to kind of grow up in the same era in the South of the Harper Morgan shows. And so he's watching Jackson, Mississippi. That's a big one, or Memphis. And I'm watching Little Rock and Springdale. And so we're getting to see that same magic in a guy named Phil Gardenhire, Liesl Harris, and Rudy Burns. And they're creating magic inside the arena.
Yeah.
And as a kid growing up, you're like, that's what you want to see. That's what you want to be.
Right.
And I never had the benefit by the time I wanted to be a rodeo announcer. Unfortunately, Phil Gardenhire had passed away, had gotten killed in a car accident. And so, but I got to watch Phil. And I'm fortunate enough to be pretty good friends with Phil's son now, who is spitting image, got a voice, and I think probably might have a career, pretty good career if he wanted it in rodeo. So me and Dusty already had this natural mindset of this is what rodeo is. This is how rodeo should be. Kind of a set it up, lay it down, and then still be free enough to have the ability to go with the flow. And there's a lot of guys that try to be everybody say Flint style. There's a lot of guys that try that. Unfortunately, not too many guys have the mindset or the brain that Flint had to pull that off night in and night out, to be consistent. And so Dusty style, as a more of a traditional rodeo clown style, set it up. I'm the straight guy in comedy. He's going to be the fall guy on the joke end, and know how to sell that stage show to your audience,
Right.
and how to sell that joke. And that was the thing, like with Liesl and Phil. People knew the joke that was coming. They loved it because they knew it. They knew that it was how it was set up and how it was laid out, and every time it was something special there. And so I guess there's a lot of guys I have a natural ability to adapt to their style, but it feels like secondhand nature when you ride in the arena and you've got a Dusty Myers there that you're working with.
Right people.
And so that's what makes it fun for me as an announcer, to get to work with quality guys. And I've been so fortunate, not just Dusty, but all those other guys I named off that just have their own style, but they're good in who they are, and what they do.
Right. Yeah, so kind of going into some of these things that you produce, you have a pretty awesome event. I think it kind of reminds me of essentially what a lot of people are doing. You have the PBR that's taking the most extremes, event in rodeo and kind of sanctioning it. But you're taking something that's extreme and something also that's extreme.
Yeah.
And just making it happen.
Yeah. So
tell us a little bit about that.
So a little over a year ago, I started. So one of my first events I ever produced when I was up here was at Siloam Springs as a bull riding, and it was okay, but I was like, I'll never do this again. The facilities at the time were pretty janky. Yeah. Still in a learning curve phase for me. But 2020 hit, and not a whole lot going on, not a whole lot happening around the world, and there was this hunger of something to happen. And so me, kind of that producer's mindset, like, all right, let's take a risk and let's try something. Right. Let's do something. And so I think it was in 21, started doing a little bull riding there again. Nothing major, nothing, earth-shattering, but just a good, solid bull riding that brought a crowd out. Really had a good crowd, and so we just kind of kept doing that and just having fun with it. And the racetrack kind of, Arrowhead Speedway kind of reached out to us and said, hey, would you be interested in bringing that out to our new facility that we've revamped? I mean,
it's nice.
Yeah,
it is something amazing.
It used to be kind of
janky.
Yeah,
pretty janky.
It's super nice now.
Yeah, I would put that on the scale of some of the nicest dirt tracks probably anywhere in the United States. They're having some major races out there, and just to be invited to say, hey, we want to pay you to bring that show to the center of our track. And so we've got some pretty cool ideas that we're going to, throw in the opening. Everybody's wondering, are you going to race between? No, we're not going to race, but there's going to be a race car element to it. It's going to be a little over the top. And I think it's going to be a neat thing. Now, look, everybody, that's been done on racetracks before. Yeah, but it's never been done there.
Yeah.
It's never been done in Arrowhead. Yeah, Lucas Speedway did it. They didn't do it in the middle of their track. I mean, they did it on the edge.
Yeah.
So we're doing it.
It was also NASCAR.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it's a lot bigger track here too. So
this is dirt track. Like this is like redneck.
Yeah,
like, so it's going to be good though.
It's awesome. Amazing facility. You go out there, what they've done with the sky boxes, the seating, just immaculate, really clean, and so we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah. I love you do a little bit of marketing and
Yep.
and stuff like that, and I love your what's the guy's name? Gentlemen, start your engine.
Yeah.
You know, I freaking love that. It's so
Yeah.
awesome.
So,
Yeah, that's gonna get people amped up. I saw that and I was like, I'm going.
yeah.
So
It'll make your neck red.
Yeah.
yeah, nothing like freaking horsepower and bucking bulls. That's pretty extreme stuff right there.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. So
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
September
6th and 7th.
Okay.
Yep.
6th.
2-night deal. Great group of guys. And so on the bull riding side, so I kind of occupy a unique position. Through all the years I've produced, I've had so many talented guys that I've had fortunate enough to work for me. I'll never take credit for their talent because they already had talent, but guys like Evan Allard,
Yep.
you know, Evan had fought bulls for me. And this was in a period of time when Evan was starting to get real big in the freestyle. And Evan kind of stepped away from my events and said, hey, look, I got an opportunity to go make some real money. You know, hey, look, it's great to fight a show, but for a bullfighter, if you have a shot at $5,000, you better take that
Right.
while you're young. Your time period in that sport is about that long.
Exactly.
And your lifespan's this long, so you better take opportunity of what you can make in that time period. And so I remember Evan coming to me just so ever politely and saying, look, Jeff, I don't want to leave you hanging, but I got an opportunity. I'll never hold anybody back from bettering themselves.
Yeah.
And never take any credit for Evan's talent because he had all that himself. I don't know if you've ever met Evan Allard. He has got a massive fist.
Really?
He's one of those guys, if you're in a dark alley, you want to be on his side of the fight. and I've never seen him upset at me or anybody, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
He's just, but he was a pretty unique guy and has done a lot of things in the sport. Having Dusty Myers work for me. Jason Farley, one of the best barrelmen. I've seen him do insane things inside of a barrel, literally walk a barrel to a bull, fake the bull take the fake while he's standing up in the barrel. Just something insanity. A guy that just loves brutal punishment, loves every bit of that barrelman stuff, and absolutely, we call him the beast in the barrel. Ronald Burton, I'm trying to think, and now Noah Krebs. I'm so fortunate to see Noah's growth.
So awesome.
And knowing Noah from just a kid from the Hillbilly Sticks of Jasper, Arkansas,
Yeah.
and now really be on a big stage where he should be.
Yep.
And tremendous freestyle guy. But I remember having to talk with him, like, Noah, I know you're really good at freestyle, but let's think about the longevity too of what you're going to do in this business, because you've got such natural talent. He's like a cat.
He is.
And he can
He's
see
always-
something coming like
Yeah,
4 minutes before it happens.
I fought bulls never to the level of these guys I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I thought I could freestyle, and I did it, but never to the level of protection that these guys do today with 3 guys, working the triangle, working the tornado, whatever you want to call it. So much more developed ever.
Just incredible. Like it's so natural, It's wild to
And he
watch.
just has I saw him at an X Bulls in Harrison, Arkansas. It was one of those 2021 deals where they just took a chance and did it.
Yeah.
And I saw this kid, Noah gets hooked up in the air, turns like a cat, lands on his feet, and keeps fighting the bull. And I'm like, holy cow, this is something special. And so to have him come and work my events and then see his growth through the PBR,
Yeah.
see his growth with Pete Carr and the pro rodeos, that's a guy that's, knock on wood, should be at Las Vegas at the NFR one day.
We've said that for the last 2 years.
He's got such a, and he's just, his personality never, the way he is with people, you never meet his ego first. You meet Noah Krebs.
Exactly.
You don't meet his ego.
Noah's been the same for
Day
from
one.
10 years ago.
Yep.
He's the exact same kid till now. Like,
Yeah.
it hasn't changed him at all.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a great friend, man. And that's the thing, that he'd be your friend first. Like it doesn't matter what it is. He's just awesome. But that's what I love about just rodeo in general. I mean, there's so many great people, and everybody's there to help. Like you're a guy that might be beating you in the bull riding. He's pulling his buddy's bull rope and like ride this sucker. Like win this thing, and he's just as happy as if his buddy wins. Rather than regular sports or whatever, I just feel like there's just so much. It's the sportsmanship and the brotherhood and just the lifestyle that it is, and that it's just, to me, not growing up in it and stuff. It's like you can tell when somebody's a little different.
Yeah.
You know, and like in a good way.
Yeah.
In a respectful or, and you know, people are like my mom for one thing. You know, she's like, everyone that comes over here just is so nice and shakes my hand, takes their hat off, blah blah, and it's just like, you know, so many people don't get to ever experience really that part of it. You know, and
I think it's kind of neat. Like when you go to a town that's had a rodeo for the first time, and you go to, let's say, a little Midwest town, and they have a preconceived concept of what cowboys are or who they are.
Yeah.
And then you leave that town and people, the feedback you get back are like, they're amazed at the manners, the respect, all those things you touch base on that are already kind of ingrained in our rural or ranching lifestyle as we grow up in a Christian lifestyle.
Yeah.
Those things that are ingrained into your body from day one.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how many people don't get to experience that out in the real world and away from the world we know.
Right.
And so I think that is a blessing that sometimes maybe we forget of that atmosphere that we've grown up in and then we create and then we represent when we go out into the world of, you know, really remembering who you are and what values you represent. Because you go downtown and work a big sports arena, you still got to be you there as you are back at home in Siloam Springs, Arkansas.
Right. Yeah, and meeting some of these top guys, they're just like me and you know, like meeting an athlete or something, I feel like it's totally different. Like a professional athlete, NBA player or something, you know, it's I don't know if it's an ego thing, and not all guys are like that, but it's just, you go to Vegas and they're all wearing contestant jackets, so you know who it is.
You know them.
And they'll walk right up to you and say, "Hey man, how's it going?" and just talk to you like nothing. And some people I know they'll, you know, fangirl or whatever, but for the most part, it's so cool how real everybody is.
Well, and I got an opportunity just to be around Josh Frost. I've announced Josh's name a lot, but you're working a rodeo, they're rodeoing in the summertime. They're there, they're gone, they're on a plane or out. Yeah. And so you just get that 30 seconds with them in the arena, you know, to enjoy that moment. But we were up at Cowtown Rodeo for the $60,000 added X-Bulls, and so he came up, entered the rodeo. So they carry over the added money each week. There's like $8,000 added just in the bull riding. Josh Frost is not a dummy. He goes up there, wins 8,000 plus because he's the only guy that's rode now in 8 weeks up there. He wins it all. So he hangs out on Sunday with us, and they always treat us well up there. We have a big cookout. Jersey Jake and his father, Mick, they put on a spread for all of us. We come out there, we're hanging out. Cord McCoy, LJ Jenkins, here's Josh Frost. Salt of the earth.
That's awesome.
Here's the number one guy in the world, and he's just a guy. He's just there hanging out and being around other guys and just being himself, who he is.
Right.
You know, so it's pretty amazing to see those guys that probably fixing to win a world title.
Yeah.
And Joe Cool.
Right.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Kind of going along with that, you know, a lot of people probably know Jeff Lee is this professional rodeo announcer in this area and stuff. And, you know, because we know you on a personal level, you know, you're doing things like the Christmas vacation thing with the van and just all these things that you're doing. You know, you have your own life and your own things that you're going on with. But, you know, I think that kind of shows a true character. Like, you know, Dusty was on, he talked about, there was a lot of things he talked about with you, but it just, you know, the friendships and the stuff you make, the impact that you make on people, you know, like Dusty was like, man, you know, Jeff is one of my best friends. We talk all the time, but he's made such an impact in my life. Like, you know what I mean? But it's the character that you are and the person that, like, just what you've done for the community with that whole Christmas.
Well, and I want to, it was my idea and my energy, but it's that energy that gets other people to join in. And so it's not just me, but really that started out on a little Christmas trip when me and Jerrica were, you know, we have 2 kids. We're taking a little getaway in Branson, you know, as we all do around here because that's the cheap little giveaway. And I remember it was Christmas Eve, and we're staying at a hotel, and there's a church across the road, and they're having a toy drive. And I don't know, it's something, you know, there's times where God will speak to you if you're listening. And there was something in me that said, I need to show my 2 young kids that what Christmas is about. But it's not, I have to set a standard for them to understand it's not about the getting part, it's about the giving part. And so that was really all designed. We did that for years before we ever did the van. We did that on a smaller scale with friends and family. We'd had an NFR watch party. It was a toy drive with my neighbors and friends. We'd invite them over. We'd put out a little spread. Everybody be a potluck. we'd have fun, watch the NFR, and everybody, the ticket to get in was a toy. And it was a fun ticket because everybody brought it and brought more than probably they should.
Yeah.
And then to find somebody that needed that, the boys, the children's shelter, to do with the kids hospital here, to do some different things. And then we had this kind of unique opportunity. Everybody loves Christmas Vacation. And we, if you grow up in that and you have that love for it, but me and Jerrica have the same quirky little sense of humor. It's, man, how cool would it be? Because every year I'm joking about Cousin Eddie's RV and putting stuff out there. I kind of got a good sense of humor,
Right.
and putting that out there. And then all of a sudden, I'm scrolling on Facebook Marketplace as I shouldn't at night, and I go, there it is. I found it. And it's not the exact. So I know the Ford Falcon 2, the Ford Condor 2 is the actual model. Mm-hmm. Those are so rare. To find one, they don't.
And people know what they got. So
they know what they got. So this wasn't exactly that Ford Condor 2. Uh-huh. It was a Dodge Superior, but it had that look.
It looked, yeah. And after you painted it, it looked like the exact same.
And that was the kind of the cool part of it was, it wasn't just me; it was the whole family. And my middle boy Colt, who's the artist mind, had a love of the movie because he has just an adult sense of humor and gets it. He helped me paint all that. And I can't tell you how many old guys on Facebook we fooled of all that rust patina that was hand painted. Oh, that thing's rusted out or what? No, my 11-year-old kid, my 10-year-old kid at the time painted that. He did that, and he took the time to figure this out. And so it was about that experience, and it was a true Clark Griswold Christmas experience because every time we tried to take that thing out, there was something going wrong with this thing. Like, it was parade ready, but it was not road ready.
Yeah.
Like, to get it there, you had to plan this thing out. And I remember we got it to Siloam Springs Parade, which is, that was going to be the first parade to kick it off. Mm-hmm. We got there to Siloam Springs. Siloam has a Norman Rockwell Hallmark parade. If you've ever been to that Christmas parade, it's like, oh my God, it's gorgeous. It's amazing. So we pull up. We get in, and people are just like, Cousin Eddie, just seeing the grown men faces that light up when you're driving up in it because we're in the whole out. We go all out.
Yeah.
Jerrica went to Goodwill.
Got she a robe.
We didn't get the rubber sheets or gerbils, but we're pretty close. And get there, get it parked. Guys walking by. Hey, bud, you got an oil leak. Yeah, it's a big motor. It's going to leak a little oil and get out. Oh, God.
We got an oil leak.
We have a problem. We have the Valdez going on here. We have got a major oil leak. The shrimp might be in harvest might be in problem with this oil leak here, and scroll underneath there, and there's a dime-sized hole in the oil pan. I go there, stick my finger, and my finger goes through the oil pan. Like, oh, this is a problem. So get it back to the dealership. My wife Jerrica's literally in tears. Because she knows like how excited we all are to do that, and she's put much heart into it and thought into it, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And so it's just one thing after another, and finally we get to we are making Gentry's parade. This is the last shot we got. This is the last one we get, and we are going to make this parade. It's running good. You might have to stop 200 yards before you need to stop. Just don't drive over 40. You're good. Get there in line. Shut it off. Get there an hour ahead of time, lined up. Everybody's coming by. Hey, this is so cool. We got the Bluetooth speaker playing, the Christmas vacation music. Mm-hmm. Everybody's having fun. All right, guys, time to crank up. Okay.
Click.
Crank. It's happened again. Now we have got a crowd of 20 or 30 guys that
trying to get it fixed.
That are damned and determined we are going to run through this thing. They're like, I will pull you through whatever we need. This thing's going through the parade. Yeah. Get the truck over there. They jump it. You have never seen 30 grown men standing around an RV.
They
were just. It was like something out of a movie. They're just And I told Jerrica, I said, I don't care if this thing burns to the ground. It is not stopping. I'm not turning this thing off until we get back home. And we made it to that parade, and it was just so. To see the kids are like confused because they don't really know. But then you drive by an old guy that's just sitting there watching the Christmas parade, and he lights up.
Yeah.
Like a child, and Cousin Eddie is the shit full, and just yelling this out at a parade. You're like, So it was amazing how that organically, just guys I knew through rodeo community and the media up here, hey, want to talk about it on the radio. Then the TV finds out about it because I'm making silly posts on Facebook and they're going viral, just something silly and just talking about it. And the feeling of going through that parade and people breaking the rules and coming out and giving us bags of toys through that parade. And I don't know the exact number. Somewhere around $25,000-$30,000 if you had to put a number on it of total toys that we raised just through people giving that wanted to give. And to be able to get that out in the community to people that needed it, no kid can. We talked about this before we got in here. You're born into a situation, but no kid should ever have to go through the feeling of not knowing what it's like to wake up
on Christmas
with Christmas. And we know that in our household, it's not about Santa, it's about Jesus. But to soften that kid's heart to understand that there's somebody out there who's working through God to make sure that they feel like they belong too.
Absolutely.
To have something like that. And so my kids being a part of that and understanding that, and it was kind of hard, Cord, when he was itty bitty, kind of when we started this, to understand that's not yours, bud. That's going. You have to understand that there's something here for you. Santa's not going to forget you, and mom and dad are going to remember you. That's for somebody else. And to see all three of my young men grow up and mature into that, and know that it's getting that time. Now they're talking about, all right, what are we doing this year to help? And so, kind of scaled it back down. It was a little daunting. It was a little overwhelming, and we sold off the RV. It's going to be somewhere in the Oklahoma region in Tulsa. There's another good group that does something similar, but they did it with the Ghostbusters vehicle, and they would raise toys, and then so they bought it as a way to rotate and do something different.
Oh, cool.
And I'm excited to kind of follow and see what they do with it this year.
Yeah.
Because I know that they had way bigger plans with it than ever I did. So, but to see that go on and live on somewhere in another community is fun.
That's good. I was going to say, if you still have it listed on Facebook, like probably won't add that just because, whoever's going to buy it's like, hey, I know that thing don't run.
Oh no, they knew. I was when I put it on Facebook, I was very, very thorough.
He was very upfront. I read the ad.
I did.
It had every detail,
everything that I had done to it, everything it won't do. And I had a guy who brought his mother from Kansas down to look at it, like one of the first serious customers to look at it. And I was a little confused by what they were wanting. And she grew up in a very similar camper as a family. So there was a little nostalgia for her. And she was fixing to lay down hardcore money for this thing.
Yeah.
And I pulled the son, who was old. I mean, he's in his 60s. Mom's in her 80s. And I pulled him aside and I said, don't do this. I don't feel right about this. You are planning to drive and live. You're going to drop 20 grand in this. Go buy a nicer used motorhome that's safer for your mother. And they didn't. So, but thankfully the right people that knew what it was. And I had some people from Branson that, wanted to rent it out and stuff. I said, I don't want to get in the rental. I just want to get it sold and gone. So Cousin Eddie's vehicle left on a tow truck, went to Tulsa, and it was a sad and a good day. So
yeah. Well, the legacy will still live on.
It will.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So.
You was Cousin Eddie before you got the van.
I was.
Yeah,
You're like Cousin Eddie every Christmas.
Yeah, I am. And unfortunately, I kind of look like him. So there's a lot of good memories there.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So you was talking about like when the stuff happens in the shows and just like trying to keep going on.
Yeah.
So it was probably the second year you was at Joplin.
Yep. Second or third. I can't remember.
Third year. Stu Crow's picking up for you.
Yep.
And as little as that arena was, he couldn't stay in the arena. So it was kind of like at Seneca when they had the bull ridings there.
They're outside.
He was out in an outside pen.
Yep.
Well, there's like an alley from outside that you had the bulls.
Yep.
And I'm standing there by Stu, and me and him's talking, and we hear a loud commotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where you was at then, because I don't think me and you actually even knew each other.
No, I was co-announcing. Me and Brandon Wren were co-announcing the event. And I remember, so that place is so unique. It's probably one of the toughest. I'll go way back to get to that story that we were talking about. It's such a unique place because it has a soft core foam or a hard core foam floor. And so you have to come in, do a lot of prep work before you even, and so it's probably more labor intensive to put on a show in there than it is a major sports arena because you can just drive the trucks in, dump the dirt, heavy equipment does all the heavy lifting. And so we would have to come in there, cover plastic, lay down plywood, cover plastic again, then one bobcat or two bobcat loads at a time come in and lay all that dirt. Then we had to literally drag the buck and chutes and all the gates in, and then build that arena, and then all the back pins were outside. And so I was kind of over the production elements and the promotion elements, and LJ, would show up with the bulls and the competition side of things. And I remember, I'm there, I'm doing all the work, hot and sweaty, and LJ gets there and he goes, you probably need to cover that hole there, and after you've done a lot of work and you're hot and you're tired and somebody just rolls in with the bulls and, telling you what to do. No, it's going to be fine. Nothing's happening. Shut up, LJ.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to okay. Well, danged if it wasn't. And I can't remember who it was. It was Terry Don West bulls. And as soon as that bull, and this bull was nuts coming in, because there's one alley, a long alley. Now we could stack 14 bulls. Production wise, you could keep the show rolling really good in there, but it was one alley coming in up to the center, and you sorted them off left, right in the buck and chutes, and our outgate was in the corner. Well, this bull, nuts in the back pen, crazy bucking bull in the arena, wild, sporadic, goes out, busts through a gate, finds the hole that LJ warned me about. Out he goes. Now, we don't really know what's happening until a couple of milliseconds later when everybody going, he's out. Okay. Me and LJ both at the same time. It's like a movie. We get out in the middle of the street out there at the same time. Now, Stu is gone. I think you and him were gone.
Yeah.
You guys left.
We was hightailing it. He's on his horse.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing gates open for him.
Yeah.
And then a guy comes in on a flatbed, and I jump on the back, and he's got a couple of ropes tied
All
up.
I see is your tailgates. Your tail light's gone.
Yeah, so we start grabbing ropes off the deal, and I went down an alley, and they was down that main street, because there's like 3 streets running parallel with each other right there. And I'm running down this alley, and he was going in and out of the houses and stuff.
Yeah.
So it took us a minute to figure out where he went.
Yeah.
And when we came back, I realized I had run like a mile.
Yeah, no, you guys went several ways away.
Long blocks.
Yeah.
So finally we got him hemmed up in a yard, had some cars parked and everything, and I got him roped on by foot, and Stu came around, and I think I had tied it off to the ranch hand when I roped him. And we untied it, and then Stu got a hold of him. But, man, that was...
So I think that was the second year, because the first year, it was a week Friday night, and we had an okay Saturday night. And then the second year, that happened on a Saturday night.
It was a Saturday night.
So we had it was growing. Mm-hmm. We had a good Friday night and a pretty packed Saturday. And I remember it was almost at the intermission point. So we came back, and we're like, well, me and LJ were out there going like, well, what do we do?
Let's go to intermission.
Let's go to intermission. Yeah, so we bucked like 3 more bulls. I'm like... Are these bulls okay? Yeah, no, these aren't Terry's. These, So we buck those 3 bulls. We go to intermission. We tell everybody, don't leave the building. Don't go outside. Don't, whatever. And, of course, that causes a commotion. And sometimes negative, what we might think that might be a negative point, because you're in your mind, you're like, oh, my God, he's running through things. He's tearing up stuff. Mm-hmm. I've got the chief of police having a meeting with me at intermission. I'm like, I've got certificate of insurance, so if something happens, let me know. And it was literally like by the intermission, you guys had him caught and back.
Loaded and moved back.
Yeah, and you guys were back. Mm-hmm. And, and so we tell everybody, it was like that next year, and it was the talk of the town. Mm-hmm. Something like that happens. And then from there on, tickets, we didn't have, Friday was packed, Saturday, from there on.
Didn't have to advertise anymore.
Yeah, you didn't have to advertise it. A bull getting out in town, making the news,
Everybody
grab some interesting, but nobody got hurt. Nothing got tore up.
Good.
I think a chain link fence on an old place, and I told him, I said, hey, let me know, we'll cover it, and nobody ever called. So I think the statute of limitations has run out, so we can tell the story. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, so many fun stories like that, and I have a pranksters. Dusty Myers would call it a sadistic style of prank. I just take things to another level. Most guys like to, ha-ha.
You think it out before you do it. You plan it out.
So I have to tell the story of what my father did to me when I was in my rodeo clown days. This took years. And my father, Mom was traveling with me. We're going to a rodeo somewhere. We stop on the side at a truck stop or at a rest stop area. And vending machines. We get some vending machines. The machine eats my money. I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm grouchy. I'm on the road, and I look and see who owns these machines, and it's like a special needs group or something. I guess it's like a benefit for these special needs kids that are running that, and I'm like so mad. And I can't remember if I called or I wrote or whatever. I took the time because I lost $1.50 at the vending machine. I'm mad. Well, some time has gone by, 6 months or so, and a letter comes in the mail. And I open this letter up, and I'm pretty oblivious. Outside of it's written in crude crown. And I open it up, and there's a letter with like change taped to the letter. And sorry, our machine took your money, like this. And then it hits me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a horrible human being. These special needs kids, they had to write a letter and send me back my money. I didn't know until later on in my life, I brought that up, and my dad started laughing. He goes, oh yeah, that was me. This is years later. He just let me believe this for all my, most of my life.
You felt terrible about it the whole time.
I felt horrible about it. So that's just so you understand the level of what I grew up under.
Gotcha.
That's the where I take it. And so, one time, one of the pranks, one of the better pranks I ever did on Dusty. So we'll go to Dusty. Thought this all started at a IFR awards ceremony one year. So he's getting the Rodeo Clown of the Year for the IFR. I'm getting an award there with the IFYR group. We're getting an award, so they want us there to be there. And so we're all there together, sitting at the same table, laughing and hee-hawing, having fun. And I look over, I'm sitting next to Dusty, and it's pretty nice suit and tie kind of deal, and, silverware and plates and real things, not paper, so we're, in a nice atmosphere. I say, hey, Dusty, you going on next? Oh, yeah, I think I'm next. And I had a cup of water, and I motion to him like I'm going to throw it on him, and he panics. He knocks the water out of my hand, and it goes all over his crotch. And he's just beside himself, as you would be, fixing to go get an award. Now you've got a wet crotch. You did this. You did it. I said, no, you knocked this out of my... I wasn't even doing it. I was just joking with you, and you knocked it out of my hand. So he goes up there and puts his coat in front of his crotch so he doesn't get in the picture, gets all that. Okay, we're done. Some time goes by. They come around and say, okay, guys, you're going to be next. Dusty's like, oh, you're next? Like, yeah. Just douses my crotch. I don't care. I'm Billy Madison. All the cool kids pee their pants.
You ain't cool unless you pee your pants.
Yeah,
I owned it.
If you pee your pants.
Yeah, I owned it. So that kind of started a series of just prank after prank after prank. And I got a very nice desk, an office suite desk. I don't know, you call it like a presidential. It's very nice, very heavy. We went and picked it up. And I'm like, oh my, me and my wife are like, oh my, and they warned us like, hey, you're going to have some people.
This is for your house?
Yeah, for my house, for my office. And just give it to me. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing is like so heavy. Well, it's filled with all this stationery, like really high quality stationery paper. Once we get home, I'm like, we're pulling the drawers out. I'm throwing this paper away, getting all this stuff. And I stop. It's this stationery from some liberal arts college in Memphis. And it's the letterhead. It's the letters.
But
it's
nothing on
everything. Nothing. Just, and I said, no, Jerrica, don't throw that away. She goes, why? I said, I'm going to write Dusty Myers letters. Now, this was a process. It took me a while. I went to our nicest office supply store to find a fountain tip pen. I practiced calligraphy for a month. I mean, I practiced my penmanship to make it not look like my penmanship.
Right.
And I can't remember. It was Dr. Kissing My Ass. Was it? And so the first letter, there was several people in the process of this. But, basically the letter, and Dusty still got these somewhere. I've got pictures of them somewhere. But in short term, it was, sorry to inform you, your letter, your application for acceptance has been denied. Upon further review, your buffoonery, your humor style is not befitting of our college. And, signed Dr. Kiss My Ass. But I know I can't send this out from my house. He knows where this is going to come from. So this letter hangs out in my truck all year long. So finally I get down to Southern Arkansas, Hope, I'm like, man, I got to send this out. I'll send it. Well, I don't know is that Hope's mail doesn't get mailed out of Hope. It goes to a center in Shreveport, Louisiana. So it gets stamped out of Shreveport.
Oh, wow.
So the letter goes, and I let it, I'm like, oh, you kind of giddy, you know, I want to, and then kind of a week goes by and life goes on, you kind of forget. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call. And I'm like, okay, here it is. I know it was you. You did this. You wrote this letter. Mute. Get my laughs out. Okay. What do you mean? What are you talking about? You wrote this letter. What letter? This letter from this liberal arts college in Memphis, and Dr. Kiss My Ass. This is you. What are you talking about? Wait, you mean you didn't do this? I said, Dusty, I'm a full-grown man with 3 children. I have a lie. I don't have time for this. Read me. What does the letter say?
Do I even write in cursive?
Yeah. What? Where would I get? What does it say? Liberal arts college. Where would I even get this stuff,
Yeah.
Dusty?
Yeah.
I don't know. I said, what does the letter say? I mute me so I can hear him, so he can't hear me laughing. He reads the whole letter to me, and I'm laughing my ass off completely. And he goes, well, this thing, it was stamped out of Louisiana. I'm like, well, who do you know out of Louisiana? I don't. You know what? Trey Windhorse was down there at Spring Hill, Louisiana, announcing that rodeo. Mute. Yes, this is going to be great. And I am texting Trey Windhorse as he is telling me this. Like, Trey, act surprised. You don't know, but Dusty's going to blame you for something. It was me. Go along with it.
Yeah.
Okay. I said, probably was Trey. I mean, he said, it's either you or Trey. You're the only ones that could come up with this. Okay. It wasn't me. So he calls, I guess he just reams Trey, and gives Trey the right. And of course, Trey is, he didn't do it, but he knows who did. So we let that go on for a little while, and 6 months go by, and say, it's time for letter number 2. Letter number 2 is, on second thought, we would like you to come in as a case study on, so we can study lowbrow humor, how you're racist, undertones and all this, things that you do, so we can study this and how this applies to people that this appeals to, as you're like a hoity-toity,
right.
Liberal arts college man, But where can I send this out now? So I call my buddy Jacob Moorhead, who's working the state fair down in Jacob knows. So we've let him in on the joke. He knows what's going on, and I call him up and I say, hey, I'm going to mail this to you. You mail it out from Texas. He's like, he's going to know it's me because I'm down in Texas, So Jacob literally leaves the fair and goes all the way to Fort Worth to mail this thing. And everybody thinks, oh, Dallas and Fort. They ain't right next to each other.
Right.
45.
Yeah, it's a long drive. He goes all the way there to mail this out, gets it to him, and the second time Dusty called, it got me because I was distracted, and I finally admitted to him so that it was me. And I mean, he was beside himself. I knew it was you. I said, you didn't know it was me. I had you, So that's the level that I take pranks to.
I wish he would have never known, and then he listened to this podcast. And
Yes, I know. Yes. I wish I could have waited years. Mike Driver, I got Mike Driver last year, so good. So everybody, they like to, and Dusty's warned these guys, like, hey,
watch out for Jeff.
if you're gonna do these things, you just know that it's another level.
Back, yeah.
It's another level. It's not like, hey, gotcha. He's gonna sit and wait. And I can't remember what Mike Driver, mouthing in group text or whatever. I'll fix your little red wagon. Mike came and fought the PBR for me at Lamar. What he doesn't know is that the county commissioner owns that property there, and then in a heartbeat, I'm like, oh, I can get the sheriffs to arrest him in the arena. I've got video proof of this. This was great. I tell nobody but Dusty Myers. Dusty Myers, my wife, the only ones that know this is happening. And so there's this kind of, I guess Mike kind of got in a bar fight. It wasn't him that started it, but he stopped it. Mike's a put together guy, great bullfighter too, put together, but knocked this guy out in the bar down in Fort Worth. So we start kidding him like, got some warrants out for your arrest, stuff like that. And I call him before the show, and I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Because I've kind of gotten, quit, whatever, quit with me. So the sheriffs were in on it. We get done with the first night's perf. Fireworks are going off. Guys are done with the show. They're going to go sign autographs. Here come 2 sheriff's deputies out in the arena. Put their hand out. Mike goes to shake their hand. And Mike even admits, he's like, I thought these guys are, you get handshakes all the time. Grabs his hand. The other big guy puts his hand behind his back. Puts the cuffs on him. And Pork Chop's there. So I don't tell anybody. We got the Bluetooth headsets on. So I tell Chase Pittman in the show, while he's running the shoots, I'm like, all right, Chase, look, here's what's happening. Mike Driver doesn't know he's fixing to get prank arrested. I'm going to need you to film this because he's going to know if I've got my phone in my hand,
You're behind.
something's up.
Yeah.
Something's up. And so Chase is like, all right, got it, boss. So he's got the phone. I said, follow. And I'm talking him through the whole thing. This is like, real life TV cops. I'm directing this. All right, follow Mike Driver. And Pork Chop is coming up beside me. And all this is happening at once. And little Pork Chop's like, they're arresting. I said, calm down. I didn't tell him what was going on. I said, calm down. So he's sitting there just befuddled. Mike Driver's getting arrested here. Yeah. And Mike, oh my gosh, the video's great. Mike's like, it's hitting him like, oh my God, this is real. I've got a warrant out for my arrest. And these guys. And so they take it to a point, and Mike thankfully didn't resist any of this.
Yeah, I can.
He went to a point, and then I kind of ran up and said, gotcha. And I mean, he wanted to punch me. He wanted to punch those cops. He was mad because we were all laughing and we got him. And then he has to go sign autographs and act like he's happy. And so after the show, he's like, you got me. Stay away from me, but you got me. I need to chill this.
Just know I'm not going to be messing with you in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this year, no, I told him, I said, look, no pranks this year. He said, I don't believe that. So keep guys on an edge.
Yeah.
Keep them on an edge. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that would be me. I mean, we don't really mess around too much, but I feel like if we ever got into it, I would be like the extra, taking the extra mile.
I have one rule. I don't mess with anybody's personal property. Don't ruin their stuff. Don't mess. But, I'm probably, if something bad has happened in your life, you're going to wonder.
Yeah.
Is that Jeff Lee that caused it? That's what Dusty always says. Yeah. Something bad happens. I always wonder, did he cause this?
Yeah.
I may take things a little too far.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, it's great to hear rodeo stories always, especially once you have. I mean, we've seen Dusty, we've seen you and stuff, but now getting to know you too, and then hearing stories and stuff, it's always good. So we appreciate you taking your time out of your week to come and come join us on the podcast.
No, I'm honored to be here. I've seen this thing grow from the start and how you guys have developed it, and you do a wonderful thing.
Well, we decided that this episode is going to be split into 2 parts because the next hour is really cool, raw, and real.
Yeah, just real raw emotion.
Yeah.
Just 3 men talking about real life stuff and things that we've all went through. And, if you guys have been struggling or you guys just need a pick-me-up, it's a good talk. So
it is a good one. So
make sure you go listen to this next episode.
Absolutely. It'll be out next Sunday as well. So as for this podcast, this will end part 1 of Jeff Lee. So we appreciate y'all checking in, sticking around.
And listening to another episode of the Everything Rodeo podcast.
We'll see you next week.
Did you have good service today? Ding, 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 ding.
I always feel like I'm a cancer survivor when I leave that place.
No, you're just eating cancer.
Only at Long John Silver's.
Captain D's, Long John Silver, White Castle.
That dude likes White Castle.
I like White Castle, but it does not like me.
Well,
this guy,
He's
it
just
does not
renting.
like Cody either.
It's just like renting food.
okay, so
Just right through
the
you.
year in Vegas, the year after COVID, it was still weird out there. And
It's always weird.
one of them deals where it was like, I haven't made a lot of money, so we're like, hey, I'm going to stay at the cheapest place I can.
Been there.
So we stayed at Circus.
Ooh, not been there.
There's freaking hair on the pillows, and it was a
Ambiance.
bad experience.
So the last night we're there, this dude has just been going on and on about how good White Castle is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, it's like midnight. That's the only thing open, so let's go eat it. So we get like a box of White Castles, and I eat like
24-pack.
eat like 3 or 4 of them in the car, and I'm like, this tastes like a straight up, I'm eating onion. Like, this is not a hamburger.
Do not let him fool you. He
gotta put mustard.
was like, oh,
I
these
ate
are
3
actually
of them.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Because the only thing they have is those chicken rings,
Yeah, the chicken.
I have
wing.
Alpha
their
Gal.
cheese, or the
backstory.
hamburgers.
Yeah.
So we get back to the room, and I'm like, oh, crap. And it hits
Exactly.
me.
That's it.
And I go in the bathroom, and I'm Ralphing.
Oh, it
And-
came up that way.
Yes.
Oh, it does.
But I have
No, it was in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Because I was asleep and I was like, oh gosh, because his wife was there and I was like, should we should we
Ace
help?
is like, should I call like an ambulance?
Here comes the meat wagon.
Is it that bad?
It's
Oh,
bad.
dude,
when
when
he gets to chum bucking, it's like
So
like
I've had
he's
alpha.
guttural.
I've had alpha gal since I was a little kid.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And I like if I eat crappy hamburger,
That's
I-
what you
it
just did.
really affects me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like a professional puker. Like when I was little, we didn't know alpha gal wasn't a
What
thing.
yeah, you're just like, why am I
And
puking?
I puked like every night.
Yeah.
So I'm like professional. Like I can go in there, get it done, and I'm done.
Yeah.
That night I was in there for like 3 hours.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
And it was bad. Well, then we come home and I had COVID. Yeah, I was on oxygen and everything when we came home.
it's all right. He's still alive. He's here. He's
So-
happy.
Not doing White Castle?
I don't.
I'm always down to do White Castle.
I am, but I just know that there's a
Yeah.
ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And I have to be close.
to a
Not,
rescue.
not the way it came out of you.
Yeah. The other way.
It's just boom, right through you.
About as greasy as the Long John Silver's floors.
Right. You are gonna go. You're gonna crap through a screen door and not catch a wire. Maybe an onion gets hung up.
Dude, this pre-show is awesome.
Why are you wearing underwear?
Yeah.
White Castle.
It's like
An extra pair.
it's like when you
It's
when
Vegas.
You, when you come back to
Wow.
beard camp and you only got one sock.
You know what
or
happened.
half a sleeve.
Half
yeah.
sleeve. You knew what happened.
Exactly. All right. Well, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it
That's
now.
a good
do it.
pre-show. You already got your freaking you halfway drank.
Yeah,
This is a good time.
I'm a chugger.
He's
Just,
freaking camel.
I didn't get much at the Mexican restaurant. You're gotta time that out. Yeah.
Excuse me.
There you go.
Check.
They were doing a lot of things, but not at our table.
And we was sitting in the middle too. They just kept walking
Yeah.
around us. Yeah, we got with us a good friend of ours, Mr. Jeff Lee.
This doesn't feel like a warm welcome. I think there's a lot of pre-show hanging out here.
We did not drink anything at the Mexican restaurant. They don't even sell alcohol
Not their
yet.
liquor license. Let me
have
get
a
you.
bar.
Let me
Get a freaking wrench.
Yeah. Meow. Wah, wah, wah.